Hey folks, it's former blind lib, should I say. Some of you may not recognize where or how I'm broadcasting, and it doesn't really matter. The truth is what matters. Who cares what handle I'm using? The truth is all that matters. So, as you know, I'm an American. I live in New Zealand, and I don't like the fake news narrative. I don't like corruption, and I don't believe that it's not going to be too long until the absolute boiling over of humanity's anger is going to become obvious and evident. So let's talk about governance, right? Because we all think that because there's a country and it has a flag that's unique to that country, that is somehow it is a country. And that country has passports, and that country has laws, and that country has leaders. And it sounds like it all makes sense, except it is all bullshit. It is all a lie. So, interestingly enough, the world predominantly is owned by just a handful of people. They literally own everything, and including countries. So this is a really fabulous document. The New Zealand government, a United States SEC registered corporation. This is a real document, and I found it right here at the bottom at Wake Up Kiwi, okay? wakeupkiwi.com. Now, why is this important? Why is this revelation that New Zealand is not actually a country? Instead, it's actually a corporation. It's because the world is run by elite satanic bankers. I shit you not. It's so fucking nuts. I never thought I'd believe it, but it's actually the truth. I've connected so many dots around this that it's mathematically impossible for my brain to not consider it to be absolutely true. So this document that I've read, which you too can find at wakeupkiwi.com, basically says that the world elite bankers own these countries, and they treat them like businesses because they suck humanity dry. And that's why these bankers want socialism to work out, because socialism is about consumerism. It's about materialism. It's about owning more shit than you actually need and taking on more debt to buy that shit that you don't need, so that these bankers who own our supposed countries can keep us enslaved in their monetary system. Their monetary system is enslavement, because out of it, we have to pay taxes, we have to pay interest, and we have to deal with inflation. All three of these tools are designed to take your hard-earned wealth. We are all slaves. We have all been slaves our entire fucking lives. Now, I don't mean slaves in the traditional sense that we're out in the fields with chains around our ankles and we're picking cotton and someone's whipping us. No, I don't mean that. I'm talking the financial system that we have come to accept as just being part of life is the enslavement system. And that is why they want socialism to work out, because conservatives, we only spend money when we have to spend money and when we can afford to spend money, and we try not to go into egregious amounts of debt to try and buy shit we don't need. Socialism is all about giving away more and more free stuff so that the citizens themselves under socialism become reliant on the government. And when you become reliant on the government, they then have power and control over you as an individual. And that's something that I wholly don't agree with. I believe that every individual should be responsible for themselves, and that we should never really give in to having any entity have control over us. You know, laws are there for a reason. You know, you don't murder people, you don't kill people, those are laws make sense. But the people who create these laws also create other laws that eventually, over time, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. We give up little tiny fragments of our freedom over years and years and years, and before we know it, suddenly we're entirely reliant on the government for our food, our shelter, and protection from whatever perceived enemy that they want to create. And that's how they do that. It's called a false flag. And if you don't know what a false flag is, I encourage you to go ahead and search false flag. It's a very effective way to convince or scare the citizens that the government needs to act in a certain way. And if they act in that certain way, it may mean that as a citizen, you have to give up a little bit of your freedom. And if you give up a little bit of your freedom, it's okay. The government will protect you. We'll save you. And that's what they want. That's exactly what they want. They did this after 9/11. 9/11 happened, and that was a false flag event. It was an event that was coordinated by deep state, sinister bankers in the elite to make it look as though foreign adversaries of the United States, terrorists, attacked the United States. And they took down the towers, and then that gave them the justification to swiftly turn around and implement the Patriot Act in the United States, which allowed the governments to basically spy on you at will because it's about the war on terrorism. Remember that? It gave the United States government the opportunity and the justification to spend billions, if not trillions of dollars, fighting wars that never stopped. And these wars don't do anything other than kill innocent human beings and make enormous amounts of profit for these sinister bankers who run these corporate countries. And that's what they want. They want to constantly create money supply. The more money that they create, the more debt they create, the more interest profit that these guys make from us. This is why they, you file for bankruptcy, and a week after you file for bankruptcy and you've been cleared, man, you're getting offers in the mail for credit cards. Like, fuck it, that doesn't make any sense. They're creating money from nothing. And that is their game, is they create money from nothing, and because of that, they can buy politicians, they can buy leaders within business, they can buy academics off, they can buy the media off, and they've done that. A staggering statistic. Back in 1983, there used to be roughly 150 independent news outlets in the United States. These people would compete with each other to provide the best possible news to you. And that's how they made their money, is if you were the best news company and you had the best advertisers. Well, those 150 independent agencies are no longer. There's now just 6 corporations in the United States that controls over 90% of the media. And unfortunately, because a lot of people look to the United States as for their news and for their direction in the world, and the United States media conglomerates tend to rule the roost in the world, most of the world follows whatever news narrative these puppets put out. And the fake news narrative is poignant and important to me right here and right now, because after the Christchurch shootings, mosque leaders from the Christchurch mosques were in Auckland at a rally, and these people were yelling that they are blaming Israel for the shooting, that it was the Jews. They were yelling it was the Jews, and they shouldn't be, because the New Zealand government has yet to investigate this. So how is it that these Christchurch mosque victims, who we are supposed to open New Zealand's doors to and be wholly and emotionally supportive to, get to yell the obscenities and the anti-Semitic rhetoric that they get to say? But heaven forbid, if you're a white person in New Zealand and you question what's going on in the media, you're vilified, and more often than not, your accounts are just blocked, deleted, or suspended. So, I don't doubt that this nefarious plot in Christchurch is and the aftermath is entirely stoked by the fake news narrative. For those of you who haven't seen my profile on Twitter, go to my profile on Twitter. It's ToothbrushNZL is my handle, and you'll see my background picture. It's a picture of Donald Trump Jr. standing in a massive ballroom with a very large congressional district of African Americans wearing MAGA hats, because that is the reality we are in. There's an enormous amount of black Americans who are fed up with this notion that the Democrats own them. Black people want to think for themselves. Black people are free to choose who they vote for. And a lot of them are coming to the red side, to the Republican side, to the MAGA side, because they have lost. The Democratic Party has become so radicalized and so unhinged that it doesn't make sense to stay with it anymore. And so I in New Zealand right now, there's just an endless amount of media articles, posts, video clippings, broadcasts on the mainstream news that, there's a problem in the world and it's white supremacy. There's a problem in the world, it's white terrorism, and they are literally whipping up hate. In particular, there's one member of parliament here in New Zealand, and she's from the Green Party, and she's Iranian-born, interestingly enough. And she does. I actually posted to her and said, "Look, why are you allowing the Christchurch Muslim congregations to whip up hate that's anti-Semitic around Jews, and yet you haven't even done an investigation into the shooter himself, which you guys label as a white supremacist?" And it doesn't surprise me that about 30 minutes later, she blocked me, and it was probably about 2 hours after that my account was gone. And and I wasn't looking for a racial fight. I was trying to understand why it is that there seems to be two separate sets of expectations depending upon your race. I thought the whole idea of the aftermath of Christchurch was about equality and about fairness and equity for all. But it seems that right now, if it feels like if you're a white person and you have an opinion that's not shared by everyone else, that shit, you're a white supremacist, you're a bad person. And even worse, if you're a Trump supporter, fuck, man, they just roast you. They go after you. They don't really back off. So, getting back to this document, the New Zealand government is actually a corporation, and it's not just New Zealand. It's lots of countries, and this is on the back of. And how I know this is because it was going to be the TPP. This is about the coordination of separate countries that are actually run as corporations, and they wanted to merge these corporations. They wanted to have less bureaucratic entanglement, and they wanted to make it more streamlined, more profitable for them. That's what they wanted. The amount of countries implicated in this idea that, there's the countries that aren't really countries, but they're actually corporations is staggering. That's a list. That's a list of all the countries that are actually SEC-registered corporations that also Dun & Bradstreet, which is a financial credit ratings firm, they also have these countries listed as corporations. So who's a corporation? The United Mexican States, the Republic of South Africa, the Republic of Colombia, the Republic of Korea, the Federative Republic of Brazil, the government of Belize, the state of Israel, Japan, Peru. Oh, wow. British Columbia is listed in here. Interesting. Canada, of course, because we all know Trudeau, man. You know that he sucks. He loves sucking on the tit of the royalty. New Zealand's in here. The United States is in here. All these countries are listed as corporations, and so it becomes a question: is how can you govern a country as a corporation when corporations are designed to make money? Their innate intent from the outset is to make profit. Well, to make profit means to not be impartial, and if you're not impartial, how can you lead a country? And so that's just a question, I guess, a moral question. How can a corporation really lead a country? And I love how the liberal left, who will absolutely deny and refute what I'm showing you, the liberal left will say, "Oh, you Republicans, you conservatives, you're fascists." And I'm like, man, this is fucking fascism right here. This is fascism at its very best right here. And what I love, though, is that for all of the sneaky setting up that the deep state bankers, the Rothschilds, the cabal, the City of London, look up that. The City of London. 677 acres of pure control. If there's ever a center on Earth that has absolute control over Earth, it is the 677 acres in central London known as the City of London. Look up Temple Bar Gate. So what I love is that all this entanglement, all this sneaky setting up of countries as corporations and keeping it quiet, has actually painted the deep state into a fantastic corner. Donald Trump, because these are all registered with the Security and Exchange Commission, the SEC in the United States, they actually fall under U.S. corporate law. And so therefore, it means that Donald Trump can actually implement, I guess, a state of emergency, and through the SEC can actually dictate to these countries what they need to do. This is beautiful. This means that essentially I can sit here and while I have to listen to Jacinda Ardern and all her leftist puppets, I actually know it's all for shit, because when Donald Trump wants to start taking down the corruption tied to the financial system, because that's where the corruption gets its strength from, is the financial system, it means that Donald Trump already has legal precedent, because these are registered with the SEC and the SEC is part of the United States. He absolutely can globally devastate the deep state. I was always wondering how is Donald Trump and Patriots and Q, how are they going to take down the deep state? I always knew their power was money. I always knew that the banking system was their control, but I never understood from a legal perspective how Donald Trump and Patriots were going to take down the global cabal across the whole planet, not just within America. And it's the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission. And I'm telling you, go to wakeupkiwi.com. Fantastic resource for truth. And I just love the fact that Donald Trump and the brilliant military strategists who are supporting him in this counter coup to take down the cabal have been so brilliant as to use their own creepy, conniving corporation setup against them in a legal avenue that is going to be impossible for them to stop. So that was it. If you see this broadcast, you may recognize my face, you may recognize my voice, but I might have a new Twitter handle, so I would like you to please follow me at ToothbrushNZL. And please, if you liked what you saw, retweet it. We need to get the truth out there, because the cabal is going to stop at nothing to fuck up this world, because they want to depopulate this planet and keep it all for themselves. And if you don't believe me, go look up Agenda 2030 or conversely Agenda 21. Look up those topics and tell me that I'm not crazy. And by the way, for anyone who seems to think that people who are pro-Trump, who are pro-truth, who are questioning the government narrative in New Zealand, for all those people who think that we're white supremacists, no. I'm just a nationalist, and I'm a nationalist first, and I just happen to be a white guy. I don't condone violence. I think violence is appalling. I do condone open, constructive dialogue. That's what I condone. And so that's it, folks. I'm going to be getting out of here. I got shit to do. And it's good to be back. See you later.